And joining me now is Illinois Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee and co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. Congressman, we appreciate you being here today. We heard National Security Advisor Mike Waltz this morning say that President Zelenskyy needs to express regret for what happened on Friday. President Trump wants him to be more appreciative. We've heard him say that. If an apology to President Trump is what reopens the door here, what gets Zelenskyy back into the room for these talks, should he apologize?
You know, it's just an extraordinary set of circumstance. In the end, we're fundamentally a different country now than we were just a few weeks ago, unrecognizable to our allies. And I'm not even sure we have allies anymore. Everything has just been flipped on its head. I've been to Ukraine 4 times since the war started. I met with President Zelenskyy 7 times, but probably 50 meetings with members of the Rada or their military. Every meeting begins with them thanking, not me, but the American people. It is addressed to Congress. It is the first thing that President Zelenskyy did. This is victim blaming. This is lying. This is the president at his worst, siding with the bad guys. Right now, our country is on the wrong side of what's moral and right. We're on the wrong side of history.
So Zelenskyy saying, I apologize for the turn of events, or I regret the way things played out, or I'm sorry that the conversation got heated. You don't think that would be useful at all, or something that Zelenskyy should consider?
Look, he shouldn't have to, but I get diplomacy sometimes requires things that are difficult. So that's fine. But it doesn't get to the broader issue of where we're going to be on these issues. You know, what do we think should be part of a peace deal? You know, I'm for peace, and I know the Ukrainians are desperate for peace, but not if it means a Russian victory. And we've got to start asking ourselves what that means. It means the land territorial integrity. It means security assurances. Hey, how about returning the tens of thousands of kids that were kidnapped by Putin and taken into Russia, accountability for the war crimes, and who will rebuild Ukraine. We're again, in the opposite part of this. We're talking about almost de facto reparations. The Versailles Treaty twisted and turned on its head as well. We're punishing the victim here and blaming him instead of the tyrant Putin.
So I want to play what we heard from Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford on Meet the Press yesterday, and then ask you a question after this.
Based on what you witnessed in the Oval Office, Senator, are you concerned that the United States is turning its back on Ukraine?
No, we're not turning our back on Ukraine, nor should we. Putin is a murderous KGB thug that murders his political enemies and is a dictator there. And so we've seen that. We've seen his aggression. Countries around him have seen that. Obviously, the Ukrainian people have seen that. The challenge is now we're at a stalemate.
So what do you think, sir? Is the U.S. turning its back on Ukraine?
Look, if we don't help, we're turning our back on them. Let's just say we don't do anything and there's no additional supplementals. Ukraine can't last forever in that. This is a battle that Putin wants. He can play the long game because he has 4 times the population. He has North Koreans helping him, and he treats his troops like cannon fodder. So we have to actually do something and give them additional aid with our NATO allies if we want to accomplish anything. Right now, we're making it much worse for them, especially when we cut off USAID help in Ukraine, which is an important part of maintaining their country's strength. So we are turning our back on them. We're siding with the Russians within the United Nations and not doing anything to help in the meantime.
And when you say we, I assume you mean the Trump administration, but does Congress actually have any power here if President Trump decides to turn his back on Ukraine?
When I was saying we, I was talking about my country. Unfortunately, we're in the minority in the House and the Senate and don't have the White House. So the fact of the matter is those supplementals, the last few supplementals that help give military aid to Ukraine, failed on the Republican side of the House. Let's put that in context. The Reagan doctrine said that we will help our allies against Soviet aggression, no matter what it takes. Well, the Reagan doctrine is dead in the Republican Party. So the only reason it passed in the first place is because of Democratic votes. We're not in the majority. We can't do it alone. They have to take the lead.
I want to turn domestically now, if we can, sir. Over the weekend, we heard Speaker Johnson say that he's okay with a clean CR through September at the current funding levels. Does that sound good to you?
Look, normally I would say yes, but what faith should we have that the president will even spend the money, right? I think you go back and say we're not going to approve anything until you start unfreezing the assets and put people back to work. We're not going to go in the opposite direction and negotiate against ourselves. This is a president who's got an onward assault against Article 1. I don't think he, in his mind, believes it's necessary and doesn't believe he can violate the Constitution. So a clean CR without restoring the cuts that we were talking about and respecting the Article 1 and moving forward together and negotiating these issues, I think anything's on the table right now, but it begins with the President of the United States coming back to the reality of the Constitution.
I want to show our viewers some numbers here. This is from a recent CNN poll that we're able to pull up for you. It shows that 73% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents say congressional Democrats are doing too little to respond to President Trump. If Democrats supply the bulk of the votes for the CR, if that were to be the case, with nothing in return, are supporters going to be happy with that, supporters of Democrats?
Well, I won't be happy with it, so I'm not going to be part of it. I get the frustration that Democrats see right now and that they're living with. All I can tell them is we have our voices and our votes, and we're going to use our votes to the extent we can and leverage them to restore our country back to where it should be. In the meantime, I'm doing town halls virtually and in reality and talking to the press as much as I possibly can to communicate to the American people that this isn't cost cutting, it's corruption. This is Musk protecting his interests, and that everyone's going to be hurt by these cuts. If you think you're safe as a Republican in rural United States, if they cut Medicaid the way they're suggesting, those rural hospitals will collapse and you will have no place to take your family to the ER, just as one example.
All right, Congressman Mike Quigley, sir, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.